I'm a firm believer in the fact that every single person has a story or multiple stories in them, and at some point in their life they will crave to share it with other people, whether it's through the form of literally verbally expressing themselves to other people, or whether it's through art, through photography, videography, any kind of creativity, or whether it's through the form of writing. Now, writing a book is such a special experience. I've actually written a young adult contemporary romance novel called The Exes. It was published by Penguin Random House. I've got a copy near me. It was published by Penguin Random House earlier this year, May 2024, and I just love it so much. It's a British South Asian gossip girl, and now I'm actually trying to work on a new story. My thoughts are super messy. It's very early on in the stage of me working on this new book, and I just want to take you along for the journey to show you how I write, how I structure my thoughts, how I go about the earliest stages of planning a very first draft. Everything's a little bit messy and chaotic at this point, but it all comes together and eventually starts to really shape itself into something that looks somewhat like a manuscript, or what you would call a first draft of a novel. One of the best pieces of writing advice I've ever received is to find a good balance between writing for yourself and writing for the market. I know that I need to write all of this idea that I have in my mind in a way that is suitable to the market in the publishing industry, and it's suitable to readers. I don't want to just write in a way that it's a passion project of mine but nobody else will get it. You need to sort of cater towards the market and towards editors and literary agents and readers as well, and finding that balance between writing something you're super passionate about and something that is commercial and does have its place in the publishing industry is like the best place to be in. The following points in this video are really going to help you find that balance between writing something you're passionate about and learning about the industry standard through doing your research, so that you're really able to get your foot in the door with getting traditionally published, because it is a very competitive and difficult industry to get into. According to all of the writer friends that I've spoken to, jumping from one genre to another almost feels like you're starting all over again, and you have to learn how to write in a completely different voice and style and just like cater to that genre. For instance, I've been writing in young adult contemporary romance. That is what my first two novels are in. So the first one's already published. The second one is currently with my editor over at Penguin. It's just going through the varying stages of editing. This is honestly one of the biggest pieces of advice that I'm going to share today. It is to learn the details of the genre that you want to write in. Get really specific about it. You yourself should be able to actually shelf your novel in a bookshop. You should know exactly what genre it is, exactly where it would go, and that would make it so much more attractive to literary agents, to publishers. If you basically have a very specific genre and you are catering to a market. So now that I've decided to write in a different genre, I need to understand the technicalities of it. I'm currently working on something that can be categorized as a paranormal romance or even a romantasy. It's an enemies to lovers story about witches and vampires set in contemporary England. So I'm studying this genre and deciding my writing style and voice accordingly. I do this through analyzing different novels that are trending in that genre or are just really popular in that specific genre. Firstly, the main difference I found is the word count. Because of the world building, the word count is basically a lot higher in fantasy or even paranormal romances. In YA contemporary romance or rom-com that I had been writing in, it was around 80,000 to 90,000 words. But in this genre, I can actually have a higher word count, up to about 100,000 words. It's so important for me to be aware of this, because then I can actually write a story that is a little bit more lengthy, has more detailed world building without worrying about, you know, my word count going over. The second difference I've really found is in the language, because in contemporary romance, language tends to be a little bit more, I would say, just straightforward, but in fantasy it tends to be quite poetic. And so I need to really think about my writing style and maybe adapt it a little bit more into something that would really suit a fantasy novel. And the third difference that I found is that this genre is extremely competitive. So I need to basically prepare a very strong manuscript.
My research skills are definitely something I need to tap into,
because for my first two novels, they were both set in contemporary London. I am a Londoner, so I didn't really have to delve into doing too much research. I was raised in London and I'm well versed with just the culture, the lifestyle, the different parts of London, and so it came to me very naturally, and I didn't find that I had to do much research at all. It was little bits of research, but it wasn't so extensive. With this paranormal romance novel that I'm working on, I want to set this novel in a small town in contemporary England. I've never lived in a small town. I am such a city girl. I am such a Londoner. It's almost embarrassing. Like, I don't know how I would like function in a small town. I don't know what those kind of interactions with neighbours and like, you know, what the community feel like. I just don't know it. And so I have to, I would say, do some research, speak to people, and maybe even go out and live there in a small town, in the small town that I'm interested in setting this novel in, just to get a real sense of what it's like. I think that informs your writing in such an incredible way. So there's that kind of research, really looking into the story, where you want to set it, what is the world looking like. If it's a fantasy novel, then really working on the world building, trying to understand the different rules, because the worst thing is when you have plot holes, it is no longer so believable and it just pulls people right out of the story. So really flesh out everything as much as you can. So at this early stage of the research process, I like to just let everything be really fluid and open and not control anything too much. Because there are so many different ideas that are going to come up as you start researching things, and honestly I just literally type witches in England, or you know, paranormal activities in small towns, or history of witch hunting in England, and through that so much comes up, and then I just make notes on whatever seems interesting, and slowly the idea, the initial stroke of inspiration, will build into a proper story. So let's get on with it.
I truly believe that it's so important to have fun during this process. The drafting stage or the research stage is actually the most creative phase of writing a novel, and if you don't make it fun for yourself, if you don't let your creativity flow and just enjoy that process, I think it can become quite arduous and even negative in a sense. You might not want to revisit writing your story, so try to take that pressure off and don't take it too seriously. Let your creativity flow, learn to love and enjoy the process, lose yourself in creating your characters, creating the setting, creating the world, and just be fully present in that moment and love every single second of it, because you're creating something that is entirely your own, and you should be so excited and proud of that.
Another thing that really helps me to stay motivated and to almost do market research is to read books in the genre that I'm wanting to write in. So at the moment I'm sort of thinking about writing a young adult paranormal romance, but as the enemies to lovers vibe intensified, I realised I do want it to be a little bit intense, and I do want that chemistry to be sizzling and the romance to just really be like, whoop. So I'm reading an adult paranormal romance, and I've actually already read this and I loved it, so I'm giving it a bit of a reread and just trying to understand whether I do want to write a young adult novel or an adult paranormal romance.
Reading heavily is actually so important, and it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Stephen King. If you want to be a writer, you must do two things above all others: read a lot and write a lot. There's no way around these two things that I'm aware of, no shortcut. And this really ties on to the previous point that I made about learning through doing your research. As you read, you will be doing essentially research, and you'll be absorbing so much information about writing style, chapter length, word count, story structure for the kind of genre that you want to write in. It will equip you better than anything else to write your story. Once you've done your research and you've got a clear idea of your character, setting, and storyline, it's time to start putting all of that information into a story structure, into a beginning, middle, and end, and that way you will be able to start writing with confidence and constantly be able to refer back to that document that has a detailed layout of what your story is all about. I have two key pieces of advice for this stage of your writing journey. Firstly, do not be a perfectionist, otherwise you'll find yourself stuck in the research phase for far too long. long. Just start, and please remember that it's very normal to not have everything fleshed out at this stage. A lot of stuff will come up as you start writing. And secondly, I need you to trust your gut, because honestly, your gut instinct will tell you so much about the right direction for your story. Just remember that no one's first draft is perfect. Everyone requires different stages of editing. It doesn't matter how well established an author is, they will indeed need to edit their novel multiple times before it's ready to be published. So especially if this is your first novel, do not put pressure on yourself. Just realize that your first draft is your first draft. It's not supposed to be perfect. It's not going to be very, very well polished, and that's normal. It's the way it is for everyone. So please be gentle with yourself. Don't be a perfectionist. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, and trust your gut and just get writing.
So once I've done all of my research and then I've incorporated it into a loose structure of beginning, middle, end, and I have a sense of direction for the story, bearing in mind that I try not to have it too heavily fleshed out, because there is so much inspiration that comes from the act of writing within itself. There are so many new characters and scenarios and things that will just pop into your mind, and you'll think, oh my god, this is amazing. So I try not to be too prescriptive in the structure that I've got in mind. It's just loosely structured, but I have a clear sense of the main aspects of the story, or I have a really well fleshed out main character and I know their quirks, their motivations, and I have a general sense of the kind of journey I want them to go on. So once I have all of that in order, I will literally just start writing the first chapter, and it feels really amazing. There are so many different emotions, honestly, good, bad, everything in between. So I will have this kind of nervous energy where I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work, and this excitement that, oh, this is definitely gonna work. So I just wanted to share the fact that it's very normal, even for published authors. Like, I get so much anxiety with penning new books or thinking about writing in different genres or writing something new. It's an intense experience, and I would honestly say that as you write the journey of the characters, you go through that journey yourself. You feel everything that happens in your book so deeply, and it's obviously exciting but nerve-wracking too. So be gentle with yourself. Try to remember how exciting this is. I say to people who are very serious about penning a novel to start thinking of it as a 9 to 5, in a sense that, okay, these are the hours that I have to put into writing this book, otherwise it's never going to get done. You have to pencil in that time, you have to take it seriously and start thinking of yourself as an author already. I am so excited for you to go on this journey in discovering your characters, your story, and just the whole narrative in so much more depth and detail. It is such an exciting thing to be able to create characters and worlds and to analyze aspects of the human experience and condition through this creation of yours. And best of luck in your writing journey. I hope you were able to pick up on some cool tips through this video. Please do let me know what you've thought of it, anything you found particularly interesting. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I can't wait to connect with you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will catch you in my next video. Bye!